والعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمات، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمات. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا كرما وجودا. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قدير، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي. أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا، وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي، لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فهو اللعان وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك كأنني التطول عليك ثم لم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك إنك جواد كريم الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح خالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته والحمد لله على طول آياته في غضبه وهو قادر على ما يريد الحمد لله خالق الخير وباسط الرزق بالجلال والإكرام والفضل والإحسان الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى الحمد لله الذي ليس له نازع يعادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا ظهير يعاضده قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع بعظمته العظماء فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصي ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني وبهجة مونقة قد أراني فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصادقين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين الحمد لله قاصم الجبارين مبير الظلمة مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وأنهارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأذكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسمى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحملت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم صل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على صدقي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد وجعفر وموسى وعلي ومحمد وعلي والحسن والخلف الهادي المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر احفظه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعية إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به وانصره وانتصر به وانصره نصرا عزيزا وافتح له فتحا يسيرا واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وملة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق إضافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم الهم به شعثنا واشعب به صدعنا وارتق به فتقنا وكثر به قلتنا وأعز به ذلتنا وأغن به عائلنا واقض به عن مغلبنا واجبر به فقرنا وسد به خلتنا ويسر به عسرنا وبيض به وجوهنا وفك به أسرنا وأنجح به طلبتنا وأنجز به مواعيدنا واستجب به دعوتنا وأعطنا به سؤلنا وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين اشف به صدورنا وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا وصل على محمد وآله وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله وضر تكشفه ونصر تعزه وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل اللهم على محمد وآله الطاهرين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. تلك آيات الكتاب الحكيم. هدى ورحمة للمحسنين الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. ومن الناس من يشتري له الحديث ليضل عن سبيل الله بغير علم ويتخذها هزوا أولئك لهم عذاب مهين. وإذا تتلى عليه آياتنا ولا مستكبرا كأن لم يسمعها كأن في أذنيه وقر فبشره بعذاب أليم. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات النعيم خالدين فيها وعد الله حقا وهو العزيز الحكيم. خلق السماوات بغير عمد ترونها وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم وبث فيها من كل دابة وأنزلنا من السماء ماء وأنبتنا فيه كل زوج كريم. هذا خلق الله فأروني ماذا خلق الذين من دونه بل الظالمون في ضلال مبين.
Thank you, Brother Haider, for that beautiful recitation, such an elegant voice. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to another night of successful fasting. I hope for those of you that had iftar that you enjoyed it, and for those of you that didn't have iftar with us, inshallah, you'll be able to make it next Saturday, inshallah. Before we get going with our program, I said this before and I said it yesterday, I believe. If any youths are interested in participating, reciting Quran like Brother Haider, or a poem or anything like that, please see me after the program. Because tonight we have a special youth speaker who wants to take a few minutes to enlighten you guys on his researches that he made at home. So without any further ado, please welcome young Adam to the podium. Ba'da salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا عليكم أنفسكم لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. What this ayah is telling us is that if you go on the right path, the people who are astray will not hurt you, and you'll continue going on the right path. Not hurt by hurting you or hitting you or something like that, by changing your mind, by putting you on a different path other than the right path. In today's society, motivation has been a contributor to people losing faith. For example, nobody likes fasting. It's something that Allah told us to do. It's something that Allah requires us to do, and it is haram if we don't do it. Now, we have a motivation for us to continue fasting. Our motivation being that we seek closeness to Allah. Also, one of our biggest motivations is that Jannah. When we die, when we go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we go to Jannah, we do what Allah said. Now, the definition of self-motivation is the ability to complete a bothersome task without influence of external things. For example, if you want to build a house, it's hard to build a house But your motivation being is that you're going to have money in the end after you finish the house. Now, Allah did not just leave us astray to develop self-motivation. Self-motivation doesn't come like this. Now, you could develop self-motivation like through other people, but Allah also helps us to gain self-motivation. Allah helps us think positive. Like if you're building a house, Allah makes you think positive by thinking that you're going to earn money after you make a house. Also, He helps us gain good results. Like when you build the house, Allah helps you like do a piece of wood or you don't hurt yourself, stuff like that. He kind of helps you in order to make this house. And also, when you get good results, you'll also be motivated. And also, one of the biggest things that Allah gives us is He helps us connect with Him. That connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though you're criticized by people for doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, because you have that connection with Allah, you're not going to go astray. You have that motivation, and you're going to see closer to Allah, and you will go to Jannah. Now that we know Allah gives us how we get self-motivation, the main points, let's see what psychologists. The first thing psychologists say, the first main thing that they say is being nice. In Islam encourages us to be nice. We got points, we got hasanat. The second thing they say to do is to keep learning. The first ayah that was sent to Nabi Muhammad was Uqra, read, learn. Also, if you continue learning, for example, if you have a test, if you already have that background knowledge, you're already going to know that test. If you already have that background knowledge, you're feeling motivated. You gotta continue learning, and I can tell people things that they didn't know, so you feel motivated to continue learning. And the last main thing they tell us to do is to have a purpose, a goal. In Islam, our purpose is to seek closest to Allah, and that is our ultimate goal. An example, once you achieve a goal, you feel motivated, like, yes, I finished this goal. So you feel motivated to continue making goals and to continue achieving them. Now, what's so extraordinary is that all of these things society today says as good and to do them, Islam already taught us it, and Ahlul Bayt already taught us it 1,400 years ago. And inshallah, on this blessed month of Ramadan, we will see closer to Allah and continue being motivated in this blessed month of Ramadan. Sorry, I'm Muhammad.
Thanks, Brother Adam. Thank you so much for those inspirational words. It takes a lot of courage to come up here. You know, they have that one saying, I hope I'm going to say it right, people would rather be in the casket than give the eulogy. So it takes a lot of courage to come up here. Thank you so much. A true example for the youth, inshallah. Just a couple housekeeping announcements before we get started. Please, brothers and sisters, refrain from bringing any tea or coffee in the auditorium. We want to keep it as clean as possible for further service, inshallah. Also, there are child care services for those that are interested in the hallway, and there is also classes for kids aged 4 through 8 and 8 through 12 upstairs in 2 separate classrooms. Tonight there is, actually Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays, there is lectures given by Dr. Najat for the sisters only. That is taking place upstairs. If you are interested, you can go and attend that. Summer Arabic Islamic Schools, that's going to be starting 4th of July. It's a good thing to keep the children busy and also to educate them, give them something to do. The Arabic school promised to go through the Arabic language and teach religious studies, inshallah. I'm sure you've noticed that inside the Mehdi Hall there's various of different boxes. That is because of the Ramadan food drive that Dawah Hikmah is sponsoring. So if you'd like to contribute any canned foods, we would be giving those out, inshallah, towards the end of Ramadan for those families that are in need of it. After tonight's English lecture, besides the refreshments and the sweets that we're all looking forward to, there is going to be a bonfire outside with our guest speaker, so please don't leave, don't run away. It's going to be a nice gathering, and I hope to see everybody there, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In yesterday's lecture, we were reminded of the kindness of Ahlul Bayt towards all people, regardless of where they're from, what they believe in, or what they look like. In addition to this, Ahlul Bayt has left us with a vast number of supplications which guide us in asking for the right things when we communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think a beautiful story which incorporates this generosity and open-mindedness of Ahlul Bayt towards humanity is the story behind Dua Mashlul. And the way that this story unravels is one day Imam Ali alayhi salam is with Abu Abdullah, Imam Hussein, his son, and they had just performed their Hajj, and as they're leaving the sacred mosque in the Kaaba, they hear a man crying, unusually, very loud. And Imam sends Abu Abdullah towards the man and asks him to bring him back to him, and he does so. Imam meets with the man and asks him about his name and what his story is and what he's doing here, and he begins to explain his story. He says, "My name is Manzil ibn Nahiq, and the reason I am here is because when I was youth, I used to persist in being deviant. I would sin consistently, and when my father would try to bring me towards the right path, I would shrug him away. And at times, I would actually raise my hand on him. And this persisted, and one day, I found this money that he hid from me in the house. So I took it and I was on my way outside to go spend it, and my father caught me and he stopped me. And as a result, I responded by twisting his wrist and pushing him back. And it was at that moment when my father got up, walked towards the Kaaba, and asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to punish me. And it's funny because the next day I woke up and half my body was paralyzed. And some time went on and I kept insisting on my father to please forgive me. Please ask Allah to forgive me for what I have done. I know I was wrong. And for some time he didn't listen. But because of his infinite love, after a few years, he decided to go and ask for forgiveness. So they both set out for this journey to go towards the Kaaba so the father can ask for forgiveness for his paralyzed son now. And on the way there, the camel that the father is sitting on is frightened, and he kicks back, and the father flies off and is killed. The man continued his journey even though his father died, and that's how he ended up at the Kaaba that night, crying for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Imam Ali alayhi salam looked at him and gave him this dua mashlul, in which he returned home and he recited it. And the next day, Imam Hussein, as he's narrating the story, he said he woke up and he was cured from his illness. Now I think the beauty of this dua is the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen, who says, وَاتْمَعُ فِي إِجَابَتِي يَا مَوْلَاي كَمَا وَعَدَّتْنِي وَقَدْ دَعَوْتُكَ كَمَا أَمَرْتَنِي فَافْعَلْ بِي مَا أَنْتَ أَهْلُهُ يَا كَرِيمُ. And I crave your acceptance of my prayer, O my protector, even as you have promised me, for I have called you just as you commanded me. So do unto me what you please, O generous one. And when you hear these words, you wonder if this is Imam Ali alayhi salam speaking like this towards his creator. How should me and you speak to our creator? This humbleness of Imam Ali continuously asking for forgiveness in his dua. How should me and you speak to our creator? Brothers and sisters, let us continue to attend these programs. Let us be in the right mindset. The nights of power are just around the corner, and the best way to put us in the right state of mind is attending these programs and listening to these wonderful lectures. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Brother Jalal Mughniya to the podium. Ba'da salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلى على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Allah to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the blessings He has given us. The greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our Master after the Prophet, the commander of the faithful, the prince of the believers, the protector of the Prophet and his message, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah we would have nothing. Assalamu alaikum, my dear respected brothers and sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, yesterday, for those who were not here, we dived right into the discussion of identity in talking about what it means for us as American Muslims, particularly us, our community. What does it mean to have an identity? And what kind of identity do we look at, not just from a theological perspective in our belief in our creed, but from a sociological perspective? How do we see ourselves when we look at ourselves in comparison to everyone around us? Do we use our differences when we observe one another as a point of division and a point of allowing ourselves to distinguish and differentiate so that one can say that they are better than the other, or one can be in a place of judgment to mistreat the next person? Or is it merely that it allows us to look at commonalities? And that Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam taught us that no matter what human being you may come across, you have a commonality in identity with that person. Yesterday we briefly covered the idea of the four spheres of identity. The four spheres of identity being the core, the main, the first, that we are followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam from a sociological perspective, from a social perspective. As followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, it makes us distinct within Islam. But at the same time, we have a sphere of identity that goes immediately after that. The second sphere of identity being Islam itself. That we belong to this faith, our religion, just like every other person who believes in Allah and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And after that, the third sphere of identity being that we are monotheists. We are believers in one God, like our Christian and Jewish brothers and sisters. And finally, the fourth sphere of identity being the identity of humanity. That at the end of the day, we're all human beings. Even if someone does not share in the belief that you have, does not have the background that you have, does not have the creed that you have, regardless of faith, creed, color, or race, we are human beings at the end of the day. And no human being is better than the other, except by the judgment of God, and the judgment of God comes through the lens of piety, of taqwa. And that was established for us by the narration of Imam Ali alayhi salam in letter 53 of Nahj al-Balagha, when he directs his appointed governor in Egypt that you are to treat people one of two kinds, either your brother in faith or your equal in humanity. That means what? That you and I, my dear brothers and sisters, we are to treat one another as brothers and sisters. Meaning what? We care for one another more than we care for our own selves. If you are a part of a family, you know that a true family looks at one another and puts each other before they put themselves. Your priority is to take care of your sibling before you take care of yourself. To take care of your mother or your father before you take care of yourself. Now, if we are brothers and sisters in faith, applying not only to our own school of thought, but to the entire religion of Islam, then that's the way we need to treat one another. And then if we don't belong to the same religion, be it individuals that share with us in the third sphere of identity, or even the fourth sphere of identity, another monotheist, or simply another human being, that other human being is your equal. I am not better than you, and you are not better than I, or you are not better than me. If we take this, my dear brothers and sisters, this inspiration from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, where Imam Ali alayhi salam was moved at seeing any injustice done to any human being, regardless of their faith or school of thought, regardless of what affiliation another person had. Imam Ali alayhi salam was there to help them. In this holy month, in this month of rediscovery, in this month of reform, in this month of change, we need to tell ourselves, we need to look ourselves in the mirror and see who we really are. Do we see who we really are? Inspired by Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, our identity should be clear. From your creed, from your belief, from your religion, and your faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your mere existence as a human being. Your identity should be clear. And that identity should give you strength in dealing with others in compassion and mercy. Now tonight, my dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to focus a little bit on the idea of community. What does it mean to be a community? And why is it so important that we look at the idea of a community? Is it okay for us to simply live our lives in a way that's isolated? Or is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in a way that we are social beings, that we rely on one another, that we look to one another for comfort and support, that we look to one another to build, to develop, to advance ourselves? That an individual cannot be successful in his life if he does not put his hand in the hand of his brother or sister. That an individual cannot be successful in this life or the next life if he does not care, keyword care, for the plight of his brothers and sisters, wherever they may be. Where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that if an individual hears someone calling, O Muslims, and he does not answer that call, then he is indeed not a Muslim. When we look towards one another, my dear brothers and sisters, especially in this holy month, like I mentioned yesterday, this month is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us, no matter where we are in our journey in rediscovering ourselves and bringing ourselves closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I speak to myself before I speak to you. I remind myself before I remind you. No matter where we are in our growth, Shahr Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for reflection. Taking the narration of the Holy Prophet where he tells us that an hour of reflection is worth more than 70 years of worship. Imagine that. Merely reflecting for 1 hour is worth a lifetime of worship. What does that tell us? That tells us that in order for us to grow, in order for us to advance ourselves, we need to reflect. And one of the things that we need to reflect on is our state, our position within our community. When was the last time that we extended our hand to help somebody else in our community? When was the last time that we thought about not just a member in our community, but specifically our neighbor? Our neighbor, regardless if they're Muslim or non-Muslim, regardless if they're a believer in God or not. There's a beautiful story where Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam decided one night to observe his mother Fatima in her prayer. His lady Fatima alayhi salam being the daughter of the Holy Prophet, and not only being an honorable and noble individual and the greatest woman to ever walk this earth, not merely because she was the daughter of the Prophet, but because of who she was as an individual and what she chose for herself. Lady Fatima alayhi salam was that example of perfection for all of humanity, not just women, but for men and women alike. And Imam Hassan alayhi salam, at his young age, he decided he was going to watch and observe his mother Fatima during her prayer throughout the night. So, from the beginning of the night to the end of the night, to the very beginning of the morning, he watched his mother pray. She wouldn't sleep. She just prayed. Finally, when her prayers ended, he went up to his mother Fatima and he said, "My mother Fatima, I've watched you throughout the night. I've listened to your whispered prayers. And I heard you. Not one time did I hear you pray for yourself. Everything that you prayed for was for other people. Everything that you prayed for had nothing to do with you in your own person. Lady Fatima alayhi salam would smile and look at her son and say, "My son, your neighbor before your son. Your neighbor before your son." Now, how many of us really take that and implement that in our lives? You see, my dear brothers and sisters, we don't necessarily need to go into the depths of theology and philosophy to drive lessons for ourselves to see how we should live our lives. Of course, it is a noble endeavor for one to study and look deeply into our faith. But the beauty of our faith is that even in the simplest concepts, in the simplest principles, we can derive inspiration. We can lead noble, honorable lives. Look at that story. Your neighbor before yourself. Lady Fatima alayhi salam was teaching her son, who was only about 6 or 7 years at that time, maybe even a bit younger, that you have to put other people before yourself in order for you to be successful in this life. That if you wish to be a servant leader, if you want to be someone who is going to be leading in the community, leadership in the community does not mean that you're simply sitting at the forefront or standing or walking, leading at the forefront. Leading means that you are providing for people, serving people, there where people need you. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran that He has created us as tribes and nations so that we may get to know one another. Yesterday we began the discussion of diversity and having different identities, merely by being one who has an origin in one place in the world, or has a citizenship in another place in the world. What does that mean for us? As believers, as followers of Islam, is it fine for me to be from one part of the world and have citizenship in another part of the world and be a practicing Muslim? Quite bluntly, is it something that is natural and does not come in conflict to have an American and a Muslim identity? Some people may tell you that to be an American and to be a Muslim is not something that can coexist. You're either American or you're a Muslim. Or that you would need to sacrifice or compromise from one identity to the other. And that's simply not true. Because the beauty of our faith is that this is a faith that allows you to live and thrive wherever you may be in the world. And that in fact, not only will it allow you to live and thrive for yourself as an individual, but you will be able to contribute to your society and your community in a better way because of your faith, because of your integrity. Because Lady Fatima alayhi salam teaches us that even if you're in a neighborhood with nobody that believes in the same belief that you do, you still have to think about them before you think about yourself. That is what our faith teaches us. So wherever we may be in the world, as American-born Muslims, or immigrants to this country, or immigrants to any other country, Islam allows us, Islam enfranchises us, empowers us to be members of our society, to be members of our society that are productive and contribute to that society. Don't let anyone ever come across and tell you that your belief in Islam, your identity in Islam, you as a follower of Ahlul Bayt, limits you. It doesn't. For us, the sky is the limit because we have the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, where even at times when we may feel that we are the lowest of the low, that we may feel that we are being belittled, and that in fact we are little, and that what we give is little, and that where we are in life is little, is nothing, is insignificant. Imam Ali alayhi salam tells us, and you might have heard this hadith before, أَتَظُنُّ أَنَّكَ جُرْمٌ صَغِيرٌ وَفِيكَ انْطَوَى الْعَالَمُ الْأَكْبَرُ. You think you're an insignificant entity, while within you lies the greater universe. That as individuals, as believers in this faith, as human beings, Imam Ali alayhi salam tells us, never feel discouraged. Do not be one who looks at himself and sees insignificance. Because if you're holding on to the rope of God, you are limitless. if you're holding on to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us and the potential that He has for us, then really the sky is the limit. In the love of Imam Ali alayhi salam, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. عليه الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. And the third time in love of our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, when it comes to the idea of community, what are his examples? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, on a number of occasions, he would tell his followers, go to the mosques, pray in the mosques, visit people in their homes, attend people's funerals, visit the ill ones, be there for people. You cannot remove your hand from the people, because if you remove your hand from the people, then you lose many hands while they only lose one hand. Our affiliation with our community, each and every one of us, a community is made up of what? It's made up of individuals, families, organizations, groups. All of those come down to the individual. If each individual decides for him or herself that I want to contribute, I want to be part of a whole, and I want to be part of a whole in a positive way, then that community is going to be a beautiful community. That community is going to be a positive community. That community is going to be a successful community. Now, many times, brothers and sisters, we look at one another and we say, why is it that our programs or our mosques are empty? Why is it that the centers are not doing enough? Why is it that the community itself is not doing enough? It's an interesting question, or an interesting series of questions. Many of us have these questions, have these contemplations. One thing I would do, from my humble perspective, is that learning from the inspiration of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam tells us to start with ourselves. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam tells us that do not look to examine others. You should start with yourself. When we want to see why is the state of our community, whether looking at it as the whole perspective, very broadly, or more specifically at certain centers, institutions, groups, organizations, families, homes, what is our contribution to that issue? What is our contribution to the situation? What are you and I doing? In this holy month, again, take it as an opportunity. What are we doing in this holy month? Now sometimes, and I'll be quite frank with you, I had a conversation with a few brothers and sisters regarding the programs at night. And one brother told me, why are you guys having the program after the club? And I told him, that's every day. I said, well, what do you suggest? He said, why didn't I do it before it? And I said, okay. But previous years, there was a program before it. And then people said, why are you doing it before it? People are so tight. Why don't you do it after it? Okay. So you do it after it. Essentially, the idea is what? If we want to find excuses for why we're not doing what maybe we think we should be doing. Not to say that, for example, if someone is not attending a certain program, or a program in general, that means they're doing something bad. It's merely that they're not attending. So why are they not attending? There can be any excuse and any justification. There could be any excuse and any justification for any issue that we may pose. Now let's be honest with ourselves. If we wish to do something, and to be a part of something, a part of the growth, a part of the process, then we will be a part of it. If we don't want it to be, then we simply won't. Just like, for example, when you look at the movement of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and the movement of Imam Hassan, there were individuals that went up to Imam Hassan alayhi salam when he decided to have this peace accord with Muawiyah. And they went up to Imam Hassan and they told him, we want to revolt against Muawiyah. Imam Hassan would patiently listen, smile, be kind to his followers. And he would tell them, You are our followers and our admirers. But I have a different opinion than you. And this is the decision that is coming from the divine. Now, how do we engage with one another? Even when we have differences in opinion, regardless of programming or not, we as a community, when we have differences in opinion, differences in perspective, how do we engage with one another? Do we write each other off? If, for example, you follow a different scholar than I do, or you go to a different mosque than I do, or you come from a different village than I do, which has its own set of issues, and by default, you're supposed to have different perspectives because geographically you came from somewhere else. How do we deal with it? How did the Prophet himself deal with it? The Prophet was an individual who surrounded himself with so much diversity, you would see the rainbow around him. The Prophet himself, during his movement, he would have people that were former slaves that he freed. He would have individuals that were from Quraysh and not Quraysh. He would have individuals that were from the northern part of Arabia and the southern part of Arabia. He would have individuals that were from Arabia generally and from Persia. These things, let alone being from outside of Arabia in general, or having a former slave as being one of your closest companions, being Bilal al-Habashi, radiallahu anhu, just having someone from northern Arabia, someone from southern Arabia was bizarre. The Prophet ﷺ made it a point to not only show people diversity in color, he also made it a point to show diversity between the genders. That he would go on to marry an individual, that his first wife, the first love of his life, Khadija alayhi salam, the one who was there for him in every moment of grief, in every moment of struggle, in every moment that would be a challenge to the Holy Prophet in his journey, in shedding that mercy and giving that mercy to mankind. There was Khadija. That it would be said, and history would echo, that if it were not for the support of Khadija and the sword and the guardianship of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, Islam would not rise. Those were the two that that the Holy Prophet ﷺ would depend and rely on. There was a community just amongst those three. And from the principle that they all shared, he would allow people through their open doors to join that movement, to join that progress and that journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what color your skin is, it doesn't matter what village you came from, it doesn't matter what history you have. Many of us, brothers and sisters, may feel that I've sinned way too much, that I have a history, I have a past that is so disgraceful. Why would God ever accept me? A person told me once that I've sinned so much, God will never forgive me. God will never look at me. You don't know what I've done. You don't know my past. And to that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that do not lose hope in Him. Even if you lose hope in yourself, do not lose hope in God. And if you think about it, if you don't lose hope in God, then ultimately you cannot lose hope in yourself. Why? Because you are a creation and effect of the ultimate cause being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I believe the might that He has, being the might of all things, that source, then I could never lose hope in myself. No matter how low I may feel, you think you're insignificant while within you lies the greater universe. That is the inspiration that we have, my dear brothers and sisters. But it has to be, it must be, something that stays in connection and association with the community. Because without a community, without that relationship, we can lose touch. That is why it's so important for us to be reminded by these sayings of the Holy Prophet and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, reminding us that we need to stay in touch. We need to connect with one another. Even if, and I give this as a simple recommendation, and I'm going to try to do the same thing in these holy nights. Let's go through our phone book. Let's open up our phone book tonight, tomorrow night, in these next coming nights, and go through your phone book. Or you know what? Go through your Facebook list, or your Instagram list, or your Snapchat list, or all of them, and start getting in touch with people. Not sending them a Snapchat. You're not sending them, another picture on Instagram. But get in touch with them. Salam, hi, how are you? How you been? How's the family? Ask people how they're doing. I have an individual who I was just looking through my phone book the other day. I swear, I texted this person. I haven't talked to this person in years. And I just said to them, hey, what's up? How are you? How's the family? How are you doing? How's school, work? What are you up to? He appreciated that so much. And then he started talking to me about how out of touch he's been with everyone else. And that mere message that I sent him, because I decided that one day to just go through my phone book and see who I haven't talked to in some time, that meant the world to him. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You would be surprised to see how these small acts of kindness, and by pushing these small acts of kindness forward, how much it has an effect on other people. When you're walking down the street and you see a person asking for help, give that person help. Give that person help. Reach into your pocket. Don't be like those individuals who Imam Ali alayhi salam reprimanded for not helping that person simply because they look different than they did. Reach into your pocket and give. One of the greatest feelings that a human being has, and this is simply psychological, is when they give from what they have to someone else. That feeling of giving is so rewarding. And there's nothing wrong with feeling good about that. Not patting yourself on the back for, look at me, I did something good. But that feeling that I can take from the blessings that I have and share it with other people. That is a community. That is a community when we think and care about one another. So inshallah, my dear brothers and sisters, I ask that we can use that inspiration and take from what Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam provided for us in thinking about one another, praying for one another, caring for one another. These principles may sound simple, may sound very basic, but believe me, my dear brothers and sisters, the state that our community and the state of every community needs these basic principles, needs for us to remind ourselves. Because before you want to move a community in advancement, in development, on the highest levels, and organizing ourselves on the highest levels, sometimes we just need the basics. And we need to just look at one another, smile, give each other a hug, take care of those that are less fortunate, and help elevate ourselves. Because there are many of us that are experiencing a low that you probably didn't even experience before, or you probably are not paying attention. So let's pay attention to one another. I thank you for listening, and I ask you to pray with me for all of those that need our prayers tonight and every night. And the last of our prayers, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, وأفضل الصلاة والتسليم على نبينا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
Thank you, Brother Jala, for giving us those beautiful words, emphasizing that if we want to be successful in our lives and for our communities to prosper, we must put other people ahead of ourselves. Now, we are setting up the bonfire outside in the parking lot, but before we move on to that, and inshallah we see you guys participate in that outside, we'd like to do a brief few minutes with Imam Ilahi, and from there, inshallah, we'll see you outside. They are also selling ice cream cookies, so if you'd like to indulge in those as well, please feel free to do so. Without any further ado, please welcome Imam Ilahi with Allah salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Brother Jala. So many points in this lecture, really. If you just listen carefully. And we need all those points for construction of a community. what Martin Luther King called it beloved community, and in the Quran, the community of brotherhood, إنما المؤمنون إخوة. And the point that everyone, we start from ourselves before talking about the society and the world. From ourselves. Quran says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. God doesn't expect us to deliver more than our capacity. But honestly, if you look at it, we have a huge capacity, the capacity of human being that he mentioned in the poetry from Imam Ali, that you think you are a small entity, while you are as big as the entire universe. Now look at this decoration here. This is something I did dinner for my wife and Sister Dina. We didn't have this last night, right? After we left, they started this work. I left, I went home. And she came home probably, was very late, little before Fajr. Two ladies, volunteers, they are not paid by House of Wisdom for this work. And she has 3 kids, because sometimes, the ladies all have kids, and I have to do this, and I have home, and I have, husband, and I have to cook, and I have to clean. Of course, as our house is not as nice as this, I can tell you, though, but here, look, when you start from yourself, you can do a lot. You can do a lot. There are lots of sheikhs probably that you never saw their wives at all. There are so many sheikhs all over that, you never see them, even in the mosque. But we have to start. Maybe this is a modern way of, 21st century, that even the sheikh's wife should be active and be involved in the community. And I'm very grateful for that. And I pray for her and pray for all of you of these volunteers and this culture. Because our kids always think about Christmas. Because Christmas we have decoration and we have all of this, movement. And where is really the Muslim time of celebration? And this part of the Ramadan, because part of Ramadan is not the Imam Ali and then the yellow flag. But at least, in Ashura we cannot have celebration either, right? So what is the time that our kids can be happy and like some gift and some celebration? Month of Ramadan is an opportunity really for exchanging gifts and bonfire, celebration, exchange, making community. And this is the best season, really. And Allah sends us both the Quran in this month, Revelation, the model, the message, and then Ahlul Bayt as a model. So we have message and we have model, completing one another. So I don't want to take too much of your time, but just to be consistent about that letter 69, because I know some of you are following and you are preparing your prize to have it before the end of Holy Month of Ramadan, inshallah. When you study this letter 69 of Nahjul Balagha, the letter, not the sermon, not the word, the letter of Imam Ali, number 69. He talked about the Quran, he talked about the meaning and purpose of life, he talked about how to learn lessons from the past and apply it to present and the future. And then in his letter to Al-Hamdani, and last night I asked Brother Dawood, I said, after 10 minutes, tell me. Actually, he forgot to tell me after 10 minutes, right? So please now, after 8 minutes, watch your watch and tell me after 10 minutes to stop. Imam in this part used the word ihdar 3 times. And I want to also say welcome to Sheikh Muhammad Ali is with us tonight. The word ihdar in this paragraph mentioned 3 times. Ihdar in Arabic means be careful, be aware. But we use this ihdar when there is a real warning, when there is something dangerous. When we are going to talk about something very serious, we say ihdar. The first ihdar was كل عمل يرضاه صاحبه لنفسه ويكره لعامه. Hamdani, if you see something that you like it for yourself but don't like it for other people, don't do it. Be honest. If you don't like someone else to do it, why you yourself do it? Ihdar, be careful. It is a warning. Stay away from the things that you don't like other people to do it. Then don't do it yourself. Number 2 was احذر كل عمل يؤمل به في السر ويستحى منه في العلانية. If you don't like to publicize it, don't do it in privacy either. You feel shy, you feel embarrassed. If people know about it, then don't do it. Yes, because people don't see it. You think God is less important than people? Somebody came to one of the imams and he said, I have a very bad practice. It's related to my temptation, to my desires. And I do that when nobody is around. The imam said, what if there is a child? It's a very young child. He said, even if there is a child, I could try to do it in front of somebody. It's just, I have to adjust myself. The Imam said that, لا تجعل الله أهون الناظرين إليك. Are you consider God, your Lord, your Creator, even less than a child? You are so careless and shameless. While you know that God is أقرب إليه من حبل الوريد, even closer than you, than your jugular vein. If God is that close and is watching you closely, how can you do something haram while you know He knows it and He sees it? So if you feel shy in front of the people to doing something that you do it privately and personally, be aware that God and His angels are watching you. Show respect for your Lord. Don't do it. And the third ihdar that Imam Ali used in this letter, he said, احذر كل عمل إذا سئل عنه صاحبه أنكره أو اعتذر منه. Another word, don't humiliate yourself. If you do something that if you were asked about it, did you do that? You try to deny it. No, I didn't do it. Or you may not deny it because you did it and now everybody knows about that. You cannot deny it. You can lie. You cannot say, oh, I didn't do it. You cannot lie. You know that person knows about it. But then you have to say, oh, sorry, I did it, but I feel bad. Imam Sadiq is saying, alayhi salam, لا ينبغي للمؤمن أن يذل أو يذل نفسه. A faithful should not destroy his own dignity. Don't attack your own integrity. Don't put yourself down. Don't destroy your own soul. And he said, يا ابن رسول الله كيف يذل نفسه? How someone may destroy his own dignity. The Imam said, قال يدخل فيما يعتذر منه. This is for someone to do something that he has to apologize for that. By doing something and feel sorry later on, you put yourself down. You know, there is an expression that it is easier to avoid from sin than repent. حرف الذنب أهون من طلب التوبة. It is better not to sin than to sin and say that I repent. Just because we have God who is merciful, who is Arhamur Rahimeen, doesn't mean that we be shameless, right? Just because we have Women Hospital close to the House of Wisdom, doesn't mean I go on the top of the House of Wisdom and throw myself on the street and say, okay, even if if I break my bone and my head, the hospital is close to me. I mean, I can go to the hospital. Is that like something that you agree, or is something laughable? It's the same thing. Just because God is good, no problem. I can make sin because then I can repent. Because hospital is closed, I break my bone and then the hospital is going to take care of me. I said, الطب الوقائي خير من طب العلاج. To prevent from disease, to stop disease from occupying your body is better than let the disease come and then start taking pills and go surgery and go to the hospital. Prevented, as they said, an ounce of prevention better than a pound of cure. That's 1 ounce better than pounds of. It is easier to do the dafa' and the rafa'. الدفع أهون من الرفع. So these three, 8 minutes, okay, we are done. So remember these 3 words that in our interaction with the community, that is the way that contribute to construct a good community. That number 1, Imam Ali is saying that if you think that it is bad in public, don't do it in privacy. If it is something that you have to deny it or feel shame, then don't do it. And these 3 إحذر, warning from this letter of Nasr Balagha. May Allah bless you and protect you and continue to bless us to participate, inshallah, in coming nights and encourage others to come, because this is a sacred season of spiritual sale. The heaven is available, the gates of heaven, paradise are open, and we have this opportunity. We need to get together, brothers and sisters. There are so many conspiracies against Muslims. Like what happened today in London. And this crazy guy, they took knives and on the streets, and 7 people, they killed 7 people on the street with knives today in London. And they say, Allahu Akbar, we do it for the sake of God. Don't doubt that these are mercenaries. Somebody pays them to do this, to create food for Islamophobia. This is a project. This is an evil, satanic conspiracy to create Islamophobia and to attack Muslims. We need to get together. We need to work together. We need to put our minds, our hearts, our energy, our ideas together and to face this conspiracy, to defeat this conspiracy, to show to the world that they don't represent our faith. They are your puppets. You pay them to commit these crimes. Our religion is a religion of love and peace and friendship and forgiveness and understanding and brotherhood and sisterhood and rahmah and maghfirah. And the month of Ramadan, أوله رحمة وأوسطه مغفرة وآخره عتق من النار. May Allah bless you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you, Imam. Brothers and sisters, as he said, inshallah, you'll join us tomorrow, 10:30 sharp. We start Dua al-Iftitah actually at 10:15 if you'd be interested in participating. And then we start the lecture at 10:30. So inshallah, we'll see you here tomorrow night. And please, I encourage you to bring a friend, a neighbor, or another family member with you so that we can create high energy inside of the auditorium. If you would please join us, we are having a bonfire. It's all set up for us outside. Inshallah, we'll see you out there. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.